Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this first meeting of the Universal Project Overview and Scrutiny Committee. The first item on the agenda is to elect a chair of the committee. Do I have any nominations, please?
I propose Sue Abood.
Is that seconded, please? Are there any other nominations? No. Councillor Abood, if you'd like to take the chair, please.
Lovely, thank you very much. And item 2 on the agenda is the appointment of Vice Chair. Have we got any nominations for Vice Chair, please? Councillor
Carl Reader.
Carl Reader. Have we got that seconded? Councillor Caswell, thank you very much. Any other nominations for Vice Chair? No, lovely, thank you. Moving on to item number 3 on the agenda, questions from members of the council and members of the public. Have we got any questions from members of the public? Nothing from the public? Any questions from members of the council before we get going? No? Lovely. Any apologies for absence for this meeting? I'm aware Councillor Meader is away and Councillor Valentine is subbing. Anybody else? All present and correct. Lovely, thank you. On to our disclosure of local and disclosable pecuniary interests. So members are reminded that where they have a local and or disclosable pecuniary interest in any business of the council to be considered at this meeting, they must disclose the existence and nature of that interest at the commencement of that consideration or when the interest becomes apparent in accordance with the council's code of conduct. Does anybody have any local or disclosable pecuniary interest they need to let us aware of? Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Chair. I am, as many know, a Wixons resident, and therefore we get on to discussing things about matters where people live in close proximity to Universal. It's likely to be affected, so I just make that point. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. And I would also do the same, as I'm a resident of Wootton. Obviously, we're a close neighbour to the park, so that may also come into the same situation. Councillor Simmons?
I'll over-declare in the interest of safety, but my father is currently the Chair of Governors at Bedford College Group, and so if there's any discussion of skills, I will declare that local interest.
Lovely, thank you. Anybody else? No? Excellent. So we move on to item number 6, which is the overview of progress, statement of progress to date and current activity. So moving on to officers to present this, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abood. I've just put some slides together to run through as far as the presentation. There are about 18, but I'm going to whiz through them as quickly as I can. It's been about 10 months, obviously, since I was last here when we were taking the Council's response through to the SDO. So, yes, this item, just an overview, progress and current activity on the project so far. So, just to remind everyone where we're talking about, 460 acres just to the south of Bedford by the A421 at Kempston Hardwick, on land that was formerly owned by London Brick and was acquired by Universal a number of years ago, in which they obtained planning permission at the end of last year. And again, just an artist's impression in terms of the concept in terms of what the eventual scheme will construct and will be delivered. Just some headline figures around the scale and the monumental size of the project we're talking about. That through the construction phase and the first 20 years of trading, a business case was put forward to government, which was verified by them and accepted that it would have a £50 billion direct and indirect economic benefit to the UK economy through tax revenue and various levels of spend. It would be a major boost to obviously local and UK tourism, attracting millions of new visitors to the country and to the region, and is anticipated to become the country's #1 most visited and most popular visitor attraction. The parent company of Universal is Comcast, who are a tech business, and with an investment on a project like this comes not just the leisure and the hospitality option of a resort, but advanced engineering, digital, creative and tech sector type technology, investment and jobs created. So lots of various new sectors that will really have the opportunity to expand and develop because of this project locally. It would become one of the largest employers in the region, in Bedfordshire, quite quickly as soon as they open, with anticipated job numbers of around 8,000 full-time and part-time roles. Approximately 80% of those employees are anticipated to come from Bedford and the surrounding region, so real benefit for local people in terms of the scale of the opportunity available. Up until then, in terms of the construction phase, which is also a massive economic impact for the area, 20,000 construction jobs are anticipated to be created through the life cycle of the build, and at one time, at the absolute peak phase of construction, it's expected about 5,000 workers will be on site building the resort. With projects of this scale comes significant investment in infrastructure, and some headline figures were released to the media a couple of weeks ago in terms of the scale of the investment by government and the company for this project. But some of the main pieces of infrastructure that will be realised is an expanded Wixham station. The council was, of course, delivering a two-platform scheme at Wixham's. This project will now deliver a four-platform scheme with greater capacity to support the volume of footfall that will be coming through that station on that southern line out of London, Luton Airport and into Wixham's to access the resort. It will also involve the construction of new slip roads off the dual A421 and various new local roads which will be constructed as well to lots of dual carriageway, etc., and new infrastructure around Manor Road to handle the scale of traffic movements that will be coming into this resort and project. We're dealing with one of the largest companies in the world with this project, a company with a lot of know-how and a lot of capacity and capability to play a very positive and active role in the local community. And they've given evidence and they've proven in terms of where they've opened these resorts in other parts of the world where they've been able to do that and make real change and real improvements to a region and area. This next slide is just an indicator in terms of what the current most visited attractions are in the UK. So, and we're talking over 8 million visitors per annum anticipated to come to Universal on year one, which will grow over the years up to over 12 million by year 20 of trading. So yes, we're again going to have the largest visitor attraction, most popular visitor attraction in the country, one of the most popular in Europe, in Bedford Borough. On to some of the agenda items and key points to talk about in the project of what we've been working on so far. So one of the key points is the socio-economic task force. This was one of the requirements from Universal's permission from NHLG and the SDO. The council are playing an active role on that socio-economic task force, and the key mission for that, as per the outputs previously mentioned, is making sure that local people are job ready, skilled ready to access the employment opportunities that are going to come from both construction phase and both when this project is up and operational. Key mission for us is obviously again representing Bedford Borough residents and making sure that all of those who can access those opportunities, can access the support to get them so that they're in the right place to put themselves forward to find those roles. Talked about new industries and new sectors that are going to be opened up from this project. The visitor economy is obviously a key new venture and opportunity for us, something to really sort of build on and explore in terms of how we can exploit that. The volume of visitors and the spend that are going to be coming into this region to the resort, how do we realise some of that around the wider borough? The creative sector, whether that's performance, whether that's digital, whether that's art, a real opportunity there to really build that exciting industry, one that's identified in the government's industrial strategy as a key showcase sector for the country. And again, digital and engineering, the amount of technology and skills that go to keeping get one of these resorts up and running and to keep them running effectively as well. How do we use this investment in this project to realise benefits across the borough? So that's obviously focused immediately in terms of the settlements in and around the resort. Stuartby, Kempston Hardwick, Wixham's, Wootton, Kempston, all are in that immediate radius and area, but also our town centres as well, Kempston Town Centre and Bedford Town Centre. we've got a real hook and an opportunity here to build on, a transformational, once-in-a-generation type investment to realise real change across the whole borough. And that's really driving a lot of our sort of work, thinking about how we position Bedford to attract more investment and realise the benefits from this scheme. So far to date, we've been out and we've been sort of promoting that message, attending various sort of business networking events. We were part of the panel at the Bedfordshire Chamber of Commerce BedX event earlier in the year, which was at King's House, where 400 business delegates turned up to hear about the opportunities that are going to be realised, both from the universal investment and some of the other major projects in the area. So again, yes, how do we use this project to incentivise and create more additional private sector investment? The Council's local plan, which we're going forward, will be a key opportunity with which to use the universal investment as a theme to think about future hotel investment, further economic growth, the kind of clusters that the businesses that want to get into universal supply chain, how do we attract those to Bedford and spread that wealth, spread that investment so that it's realised and captured in all areas of the borough. Using our new, high profile, we're one of a select number of locations around the world that are going to have a universal resort within their boundary. The people will come and they'll visit the resort for various different 1 day, 2 days, more days potentially, and how do we capture some of that footfall and turn 2 days at Universal into, for example, potentially 4 days in Bedford Borough? What other attractions, what other pursuits are here now and could potentially come or grow or be developed? How do we benefit and use our river on our town centre, our jewel in the crown, to get that additional time spent and footfall, that dwell time in the wider borough area and centre of Bedford, so that spend is spread around. And again, the volume of jobs that are going to be created, both in the construction phase, but also when operational, lots of workforce, people with money in their pocket, making sure that they're spending that money locally. How are we going to do that? So we are looking at developing a tourism strategy as part of a local visitor economy partnership. An LVEP is almost like a business improvement district type sort of model where a company is set up and it represents a region in terms of accessing funding and also working with Visit Britain and some of those sort of national programmes to really promote an area. So that's being sort of worked up and developed now, and again thinking about the assets that we've got here and where the opportunities are from having this investment in our area. And capitalising on marketing efforts. So government are supporting this project. There's going to be a lot of effort by the company and by the government in terms of promoting the Universal Resort out there, both to domestic and international visitors, and how do we utilise that and exploit it for the benefit of Bedford Borough, for our hotels, for our retailers, for all of our businesses, again, so that spend is spread widely across the area. Thinking about the cultural and educational benefits that are going to come from this project. It's about identifying the right infrastructure, the training and vocational pathways that support development for a robust supply chain of creative industries locally. Again, a real sort of... a real sort of showcase sector for the country, something that, people of all ages, but young people and industry, they want to get in. We've got a real sort of opportunity now to really build that creative industry up locally, and innovative, creative businesses spread around the borough, employing local people. Using Universal as that anchor, as where companies want to get in their supply chain, using them as the headline figure, but building that industry strength with SMEs across the borough and across the region widely, so that we're building that real sector industry strength. So whether our people are working at Universal or they're working for companies that are in the supply chain with Universal, or just in the region because of the type of activity that they're undertaking, real something for us to sort of market and promote Bedford as an opportunity to use. And again, talking about those nationwide campaigns that will be used by government as part of this project, getting Bedford absolutely at the centre of that. So it's about delivering successful employment and skills programmes across both the construction and operational phase. So already we are working with lots of partner organisations, with Universal as well, so Bedford College, the University of Bedfordshire, Cranfield, and also other educational establishments in and around the region are all coming together in a working group and collaborating, not competing, in terms of how we can absolutely make this investment and the opportunity for our people go furthest. And again, also with the construction side, thinking about Bedford College and them having their modern methods of construction school there, they're at the very centre of driving the strategy and the policy and the programme with Universal in terms of making sure that all of our residents can access the opportunities that are going to come forward. Next section, and as part of the agenda, was talking about what has been agreed with the Special Development Order, the permission that was granted to Universal. So I've just picked up some of the headline details on here just to sort of run through in detail what needs to be delivered through the project. So they got permission through their SDO to carry out heavy engineering works to make sure that the site is ready for construction to be built on. There was relevant conditions on there around green infrastructure, the type of landscaping, ecology and mitigation zones that need to be created in and around the resort to obviously give it that high quality shape and feel that something of this sort of stature deserves and needs, but also taking into account and incorporating its proximity to residential and other employment area concentrations in and around the area, and how the resort will operate and look in and around them. Fundamentally, what will be delivered in the core zone and the first big phase of development is, of course, the theme park and the 500-bed hotel that needs to be built and all the associated infrastructure that comes with that, the parking lot, the security hub, back-of-house operations and all of the administrative buildings that make one of these resorts happen, but also the city walk, the retail, dining and nighttime entertainment uses that again will be there at the front of the park, which is available for local people and all users to use, whether you have a theme park ticket or not. Also within that SDO was the Eastern Gateway Transport Hub, so talked about that 4-platform Wixham station that will need to be delivered, and also the Western Plaza Transport Hub, so as they get off at Wixham station, get over onto the coach park, which will then take them to the front of the resort. Again, the fact that a lot of the footfall that will be visiting the resort will be using sustainable travel, train routes, etc. to get there. The Western Gateway is where the A421 slips will come through, and of course, as mentioned earlier, all of the upgrades and the investment that will go into Manor Road and the other new highway infrastructure that will be built to realise the benefit of the park. And also within that SDO permission, there was active travel routes and pinch points that need to be invested in and approved to encourage cycling for their staff, etc., with which to be able to get to work and access employment. They will also need to, and we'll be submitting construction environmental management plans. So they're legally required to submit a detailed plan which explains how they will be minimising noise, dust and heavy truck impact on local roads during the construction phase, which MHCLG as the deciding party will be assessing. There's obviously the environmental impact assessment regulations and compliance that they must abide by to, as they build the resort, to make sure that they protect obviously local environmental interests. And again, all the various sorts of detailed approvals in terms of layouts, structures, building heights, and how all that transport integration will all link in, and all that technical guidance also needs to be submitted and approved. Next slide is just talking about some upcoming construction dates and information on where there's going to be impact and potential closures. So from 29th of January this year, some of the footpaths in and around Stuartby have been closed as far as sort of improvements are being made in and around the site. From the 30th of March, the speed limit was reduced from 60 to 30 on Broadmead Road and Manor Road, as again more activity and work was being undertaken in and around the main construction sites. And from the 1st of April, further footpaths were closed. In April, there were improvement works taking place along Manor Road with temporary traffic lights put into operation. This next slide shows the Broadmead closure from the 11th of May up until the 3rd of July and the diversions that were put in place while those works were undertaken. And a lot of this information is available on the project microsite, which the company are using to make residents and other parties aware and informed as and when closures are happening. Just the last couple of slides now is obviously just laying out the clear vision that the council have got and continue to work on to again make sure that we are realising the benefits from this project, making sure that we're set up and we're ready as a borough, as an area of having such a monumental investment, and again keep reiterating it, the country's #1 attraction within the area. Working with our partners, working and collaborating with all of the networks in and around here. There's plenty to do, and there's lots of different partners that have got obviously interest in there, whether that's education, whether that's business, and all of our other community groups, stakeholders, etc. Making sure that our businesses and our local people know when and can access all of the opportunities that are going to come forward from this scheme. Thinking about all of those competing delivery timescales that are happening in and around here, not just this project, but all of the other major infrastructure projects and buildings that's happening across the borough, taking that role at the very centre of that and coordinating and sharing and making sure that things are working and working well in collaboration. And again, it's about keeping all of stakeholders on board, coming to this Overview and Scrutiny Committee, being visible, attending council committee meetings, parish council meetings, and representing the council and talking about how we are representing the borough residents in our work with the company. And again, talking about managing the traffic impact, but making sure we deliver the benefits for our area. Just finally, again, those sort of headline figures, 20,000 construction jobs, over 8 million visitors per year, growing to over 12 million, 50 billion benefit to the UK economy, 6 billion investment by Universal, 1.4 billion pounds of investment by government into the Bedford Borough area. And just those final few bullet points just sort of gives a bit of a snapshot in terms of the picture of as it is at the moment, in terms of, we're not quite Orlando yet, but thinking about the volume of hotel rooms as per population that they've got there, 1 hotel room per 2.3 residents. At the moment in Bedford Borough, we have about 1 hotel room per 144 residents. So it just shows the opportunity that's potentially available to build on this investment, to bring more attractions, more hotel investment, and thinking strategically where we put that in and around the borough to realise as much benefit as we can to the benefit of the town centre and the wider area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. Really informative. Has anyone got any questions for Patrick on that? Councillor Coombs?
Turn it off.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 4 questions. I'll do them one at a time with your indulgence, if I may. First of all, thank you, Patrick, for the presentation. We have spoken before about the importance of the impact of this on local residents. We're all very positive about Universal. It's a fantastic opportunity for all the reasons that you have just outlined. Having said that, if you are going to bring the largest tourist site by volume of visitors to an area, it is going to have an impact on residents. And come on to some of the more specifics when we do the work programme, but as a general point, can you just confirm that local residents are really, really important to this, and that they will be taken into consideration, that this is not something that's just going to happen to them, and that the council will do whatever it can to take on board concerns? There are bound to be some negatives from this. There are bound to be. You can't do a project of this size and not have some negative effect. But what can we do to minimise those, and just for residents to be assured that the council is on its side, on their side, and is going to do its very best to ensure that this has a minimum negative impact as possible?
Thank you, Councillor Coombs. If you don't mind, I'll take that one. And you'll see, and you've referred to it in terms of the work programme. So the work programme for this committee is designed really after a really good members' workshop to tackle the issues you've just raised. So you'll see in the future there's a thematic sort of response to each committee meeting, which will look at infrastructure, economy, housing, governance, public services in the blue light services and the health economy, and then also community impacts. So really our communities are front and centre in the mind of the council, certainly. And what we're trying to do is obviously work in partnership with the government, with Universal itself. And you'll see in the presentation that I'm going to give the work streams that sit just behind that or sit underneath it, without spoiling it for you. You know, you're going to be bowled over. No, it's not all Patrick, you see. It can't be Patrick. There's a whole team of people behind.
Thank you, John and Patrick. And sorry, John, I should have included you in my question as well, because you and I have also spoken about the issues locally as well. My second question is a more specific one, and in Patrick's presentation, he mentioned the roads, and I'm just curious as to where we are. I've heard a number of things about needing to make progress with Junction 13 changes and upgrades, and also the impact of the enormous amount of traffic that's going to be flowing off the A421. Can one of you, I don't mind who it is, can one of you give us an update as to exactly where we stand specifically on the situation with the A421 and Junction 13, please?
So, with regards to specifically the A421 and the access, first of all, as far as the slips that are going onto the resort, so National Highways will be delivering that. They have a specific project working group that Bedford Borough Council representative sits on and shapes on. They also attend our particular working group, which is focused on the local roads. So there's a clear relationship there in terms of day-to-day collaboration with National Highways. With regards to Junction 13 specifically, so any investment on that was not included in the sort of the package or the proposition, specifically apportioned to the Universal project. But nevertheless, I understand government and the Department for Transport, through their RIS programme, have highlighted Junction 13 as a project with which to, they've got to obviously explore it and further and realise that they're working up now, I think, the scope in terms of what investment is going to be needed to address congestion and use of that junction. So yes, it is being looked at.
Thank you. Thirdly, Patrick, you mentioned about the residents being skills ready. And I think that's really, really important because, again, this is one of the positives that local people can be involved in the project. And I'm guessing some of the working might be flexible, which suits the modern way of working. But what skills specifically were you thinking of? And where is the training for this? How is this going to happen? It's a great concept. Let's get the local people skills ready so they can get some of the benefits of it. But what sort of skills are we talking about? How are we going to upskill people and where?
Thank you, Councillor Coombs. So, firstly, I think there's an organisation called Skills England, which are a relatively new body, a national body, who only really get involved on big, large-scale projects. So they've got a dedicated worker who's really focused on working on this scheme, and that's coming down the policy direction from central government. Within that sort of socio-economic task force that we talked about, and Universal head it up, but it's got all of the right stakeholders and parties in and around there. So Bedford College and the senior leader at Bedford College is a part of that specific working group. So he is taking a very much a sort of central role and triangulating those conversations between what they're working out, and we're working through thinking about the numbers of roles that Universal are going to need now, and having those conversations with Skills England, with the Department for Education, and thinking where are all the opportunity with where they're going to be able to build on. So in terms of the scope of the jobs that are going to be created here, so there are various entry-level jobs, so there's ones around retail, and obviously housekeeping and the day-to-day ones that keep something like this park going. But there's also lots of senior management roles, lots of advanced engineering roles that keep one of these roller coasters and all the technology behind it moving, lots of performance and creative type of roles as well, and digital type sort of roles. So it's working across the region and thinking about all of the centres and the where is that almost established expertise at the moment. So again, it's not about competing with each other, it's about working collaboratively and strategically so that the maximum amount is exercised from this, so that not all chasing the same employees or the same specific roles and areas, but that Bedford has got strength in this particular area. Modern construction methods, for example. How can Bedford deliver and realise the biggest benefit from that? if Milton Keynes College, for example, has got a specific niche or somewhere in there, are they best placed in the immediate term to sort of think about expanding the curriculum they've got in terms of the young people that are going to fill those roles? So more details are emerging all the time in terms of the type of jobs that are going to be created in and around there. But yeah, I think there's enough capacity and skilled fundamentals in and around the county, the borough and in and around the wider county, and the opportunity to build on that and create more capacity. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Final question, Chair, for now. You mentioned also the construction, CEMP, Construction Environmental Management Plan, I think it was. Obviously, Universal isn't the only thing that is happening on that site at the moment. I had a meeting with planning officers very recently about a major site in Stewartby that is up for development. It's great that we've got this construction plan in place for Universal. What about other applicants who are doing what I'll call regular housing development in the same area? Whilst we might not necessarily have a construction management plan in place for them, it is quite important that we do in this case, because we're going to have lots and lots of traffic, and we don't want Universal construction traffic getting tangled up with other construction traffic. So does the council have an opportunity or the ability to place conditions on other construction companies who are building other developments? So, sorry, I'm not wording this very well. I think you get the gist of what I mean. Do we have the ability to sort of control the whole thing rather than just controlling the Universal bit and everything else being a free-for-all?
No, I think very good question, and I suppose, you know, as John mentioned earlier, I suppose our role as the council, and you mentioned about representing residents, is about being that conduit and that central part that we have that interest, and we're working with that particular development you're talking about, Stewartby, and we're working with Universal, and we're also stakeholders and all of the other big infrastructure projects that are happening in and around there, and we are playing that coordination role, and we're brokering that contact, and we're facilitating that engagement so that, you know, not two different schemes are, you know, putting proposals forward to close the same road at the same time, or, you know, these roads that are in there. It's being done in a very much coordinated fashion, and, you know, they sit within my team in terms of who are, you know, undertaking that work, specifically that one you're talking about on Stewartby Brickworks. So we're very much front and centre of that, and we are working and putting that together.
Thank you very much. Councillor Valentine, you had a question.
Thank you. Yes, I've got just a couple of questions. So my first one is about the Bedford and Kempston regeneration, and my ears pricked up, representing a Kempston ward. So can you say something about how and when such regeneration would take place and how it would be financed, please?
So the main way I envisage it, Councillor Valentine, is around this investment being the catalyst to encourage more private sector investment. So thinking around where are those brownfield sites where there maybe there are viability problems that have sat stagnant, that haven't moved forward because there hasn't been the appetite or the confidence to bring a particular site forward in a particular area. How do we work with the interested parties within that to share information on there, support them as the council, you know, get out there and promote their site to that ever-expanding network and the interest that we are sort of gathering and that we're obtaining, that are wanting to know where the opportunities are, and as we have always done, been that sort of, again, conduit, putting that investor interest together with the opportunities in and around there. Again, mentioned the local plan earlier and what that potentially could mean, and some of the proposals that would come forward there and how we piece that together. But again, it's about us as officers within our particular service area to be out there, which we always are, engaging with stakeholders, engaging with commercial agents, developers and parties and others who want to bring sites forward, and seeing what the opportunities are and how we can marry that up with the you know, the greater interest that's coming from investors and occupiers to this area.
Okay, thank you for that. The other question is a bit off at a tangent, actually, and it doesn't relate directly to your presentation, but I believe the council is or has or is about to introduce a tourist tax, and I just wondered whether you've got any ideas about how that would have an impact in relation to the universal development and this huge increase in tourism that we're going to have.
I'm not specifically aware of introducing a tourism tax immediately. When you went to Rome and you pay per night or something or other to the hotel, something along those lines, is it?
It's been promoted by the government, and certainly we had it was mentioned in a communication from a minister just recently, actually, and that was in relation to something broader. That was in relation to devolution, which, as you know, it's being talked about. Yes, I mean, the minister concerned was talking it up. So I just wonder whether you had any knowledge or any ideas.
I think it's a broader point that you make, Councillor Valentine, in terms of that devolution. So if we think of our neighbours in the combined authority of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, I think they are going down that line that you are suggesting, and I think it's perhaps a policy principle of the government at this time. Locally, though, we're not in those conversations yet, if indeed we will in the future, but clearly that could well be linked to the overall governance arrangements in Bedfordshire.
Councillor Simmons.
Thank you. Just like to start by saying I think a tourism tax would be the absolute last thing this project needs. We want to be bringing these guests into the borough, not pushing them into central beds and Milton Keynes where they can come in and commute on our excellent public transport. But one tax where perhaps there is scope for the borough to benefit would be through the business rates that this project and the ancillary projects around it could generate. But obviously the government have brought in a new policy of regularly reviewing business rates and flattening them out across the entire country, which would then mean that all of our benefits get dispersed to everywhere else. So my first question really is, what engagement has the borough had with the government about trying to get some form of carve-out in part or in whole for the business rates, so that the very real challenges which Councillor Coombs mentioned can be dealt with without putting an undue burden on Bedford Borough Council taxpayers?
Thank you, Councillor. So there has been conversation, and Patrick can obviously give more detail on that. At a future session of this committee, we will bring this back. So it is on the item for November, actually, around finance and infrastructure and funding. So we will go into more detail in the future. But Patrick, I don't know if you want to give just a brief overview of where we got to.
I mean, just in terms of how the obviously business rate retention works in terms of what the council goes. I mean, there's nothing that's going to deviate from that specifically with regards to the project. So when it is operational, in terms of what that business rate receipt will be, and the council obviously getting its its due share. How business rates are modelled is obviously a real sort of science in terms of how it is applied, and a warehouse to a warehouse is quite a comparable, where something like this is obviously quite sort of unique, and those sort of leisure type sort of operations are rated in a different way. But as John mentioned, that's an ongoing piece of work that we are working with and looking at, and we are in discussions with government all the time in terms of what that could be and what that could look like. But it's an evolving piece of work.
Sorry, I have another question. I was also struck in your presentation by the comparison between Orlando and Bedford with the hotels. Obviously, Bedford isn't Orlando yet, but hopefully one day we'll get there. But one way we probably don't want to get there is by replicating the model you've seen in places like Cromer in Cornwall, where you've got lots of HMOs and Airbnbs dotted around the place, because it disrupts the entire ecosystem, it turfs out residents who've been here for generations, and it can turn our lovely Bedfordshire villages, the new Cotswolds we've been described as, into desolate wastelands which are only visited during the summer months. So what can the borough do to dissuade the creation of these Airbnb-style HMO things and encourage more ordered development of hotels in their place to provide the accommodation for visitors?
So that local plan process, which we've referenced a couple of times, will obviously be a key tool and opportunity with which to do that. You know, enshrining in policy, well, obviously through consultation, enshrining in policy in terms of where the opportunity are and where we want to see development happening in the sustainable and most economically impactful areas and locations. As was when we put our SDO response in, one of the recommendations from full council and the executive was in terms of an accommodation sort of working group, which has been established for many, many months and has been working very effectively in terms of understanding the accommodation picture in and around the borough, thinking about how those metrics are captured and how they are measured, and they are, you know, meeting regularly to keep taking that temperature check in terms of what the local accommodation market is like, monitoring that, and if, you know, there is an overheating or something along those lines, what intervention powers potentially put in place, as and when should they need to be explored and looked at.
If I would just add to that, I mean, the council has got regulatory provisions already available to it through the through sort of private sector housing regulation. As Patrick said, that combined with the planning process, there are options around there. I know it's close to Councillor Coombs' heart around Article 4 directions in terms of, again, under relevant planning legislation. And nothing is off the table in terms of that regulatory piece. What it will require, though, and you know, to manage expectation, is good evidence. There's got to be the right sort of evidence around the institution of an Article 4 directive, for example. We do have one in the borough, and there was extensive work undertaken through planning and environmental health a good number of years ago. And there's a process to go through. That's all I'm saying. But nothing's off the table. And as Patrick said, and again, not to preempt the presentation that you're going to see in a minute, you know, there's a specific working group around that.
Councillor Edmonds.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Patrick, for that presentation. I'm just following on from something that Councillor Coombs said. Well, it triggered something in my mind. I mean, given the extensive drainage and groundworks, which is already beginning, and the potential for the data centre and the housing developments that are going to appear in the area, how concerned is the council that the region's water supply, wastewater network and drainage systems have sufficient resilience to cope with the combined demand?
So, I mean, thank you very much, Councillor Rivers, for the question. I'll say we revert to the IDB, but obviously work closely with the Internal Drainage Board in terms of them being the almost lead party in terms of the drainage system in and around the area. It's obviously in the media in terms of you know, what the water position is in and around the area, and I think again it's just about us collaborating with neighbouring local authorities. The data centre proposal that you mentioned specifically is in central Beds, but just over the border and very close proximity to the Universal Development site. And of course, all of those other sort of schemes that go through the planning process, that we are taking that very much holistic and overarching coordinated type of perspective and look at whether we're commenting on, you know, we're consulted on and commenting on big scale applications outside of our borough boundary, or whether they're ones within our borough, making sure that it's, you know, duly noted and explored and due diligence is done on them.
I'll just sneak in with a question if I may. So following on from something Councillor Coombs said, you spoke about the construction environmental management plan and that would be in place prior to starting major construction. Have we got some kind of idea about when roughly major construction is due to start, and so when we will have sight of that construction environmental management plan?
So it's anticipated that there will start to be some sort of significant more construction activity later this summer this year, but there is obviously still a lot of site preparation work that is being undertaken, and a lot of sort of detailed design around a lot of the civils works and the highway works, etc. So I think it will be still quite a number of months before you do real sort of large scale construction, and buildings coming out of the ground will obviously still be a couple of years away. there's a lot of that sort of, again, highway work that needs to be done as a first phase, and then we'll start to see various builds. So those submissions will be being made to MHCLG in the coming months. Yeah.
And is that something that we could have sight of once?
I'll speak to MHCLG and we'll find out about that.
Thank you. Any further questions for... Oh, Tim. Sorry, Councillor Caswell.
Thank you, Chair. I had two stunning questions on the Social Economic Task Force and Town-Centred Regeneration, but Councillor Valentine has already asked them. Good answers. So I'm left with the boring one. You talked about detailed plans being submitted under the terms of the SDO. Presumably, I did attempt to read the SDO, that's a fortnight, I'll never get back, but are those plans, do they go to the Secretary of State? Are they approved by statutory instrument? And more importantly, will the local authority be consulted or shown them, and would potentially, I know we've got an overloaded work programme, but you know, would we have access to those plans at an appropriate stage?
Yes, so you're correct that it's the Secretary of State, MHCLG, who are the administrator of the application, but we are in sort of regular dialogue with those planning officers within that team. It's a very much a two-way type relationship in terms of, you know, sharing of information and discussions with the information that's being submitted to make sure that it's you know, satisfactory and suitable. So again, as Councillor Abood earlier, we'll explore with them in terms of as and when information potentially will be available.
Again, just to add to that for everybody who may or may not have seen it, on our homepage of the website, there is a link there to Universal Studios, which then takes you to a variety of useful information in terms of the SDO and central government's website there. So if you are insomniac, you may well wish to read that. And then, as Patrick referred to earlier, there's another link to take you through to the Universal microsite, which highlights lots of the planned works coming. So it's all there, open for public viewing.
Any further questions? Councillor Masood. Could you just put your microphone on for me?
Yeah. Yes, we have talked about the trains and everything. What about the buses? Are we going to have the station inside or outside? What's happening on that one?
So, council officers, there's something called a transport opportunity plan, where there was money that was sort of filtered down through the Department for Transport and England's Economic Heartland, looking at sort of sustainable travel options from this project, and again, sort of the other projects in and around the region. And part of that is exploring, obviously, the bus service provision, thinking about what services are in place. And again, it's looking at a much more holistic type approach, looking at a regional type sort of approach rather than just sort of quite concentrated in and around the borough. Thinking around, you know, where are the routes going to be, where are the workforce likely going to come from that need access to those buses to get to their place of work, and you know, where are them routes? Are they sustainable, financially sustainable routes at the moment? How do they become financially sustainable when you think about the volume of users that are potentially going to want to use them to get to their place of work, or if they're visiting there to go to that city walk or to the attraction? So yes, that's very much a priority topic that is within our sustainable travel working group. Again, John will pick up on in terms of the governance arrangements earlier, which is being looked at.
Yeah, I've got a second question. I mean, Councillor Coombs already asked about the residents, but what's happening? The people are going to be very close to the area. Have they been consulted about it, and do they know what's happening on there?
Yes, so the Universal and their contractors, when they're undertaking significant works or road closures to undertake works, they're doing letter drops, they're putting information on their website, they are sort of using any sort of means possible to keep everyone locally informed as much as they can.
I'll add a quick question on there then. Is it possible that that information can be passed to local councillors also, so that we can tell our networks? Because while, you know, things are on websites, people aren't necessarily looking at the website all the time to see whether something's going to happen. So actually some dialogue with local councillors would be really helpful as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, will do, Councillor.
Any further questions on Patrick's presentation? No? Any comments on Councillor Coombs?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, first of all, thank you to John and Patrick for the answers to my questions, and I'm really pleased that local residents are at the forefront of all this, and they're really important, as other members have said. A few things. One, as a local ward member, Universal are very good at letting us know what's happening, and very good at letting residents know as well. I have to say that they are Universal really go out of their way to do good communication. So you know, that has to be said. A few other points. Again, Patrick mentioned about want people to say 4 days, not 2 days, so the wider tourism offering. Take a wander down to the Moot Hall at Elstow, Patrick, and you'll see it's all covered in. It's got railings and things around it, and it's been like that for a while. I noticed it on Friday when I was walking back from the service for the train crash, and it's just the Moot Hall should be one of the centerpieces of Bedford tourism, and it doesn't look great at the moment. So I would have a word with whoever you need to have a word with and see what they can do to speed that up, because it's gone on for ages. The Article 4 bit, I mean, yes, as Councillor Simmons mentioned and as John mentioned, I'm very passionate about having Article 4 as soon as possible. I hope to come onto that when we do the work programme. That's why I've asked it for it to be on here. There are already, I've heard of, there are people already buying properties in anticipation that they will be able to let them out as Airbnbs. The drone guy, I don't know his name, one of the Facebook guys that sends the drone over has already got something on his Facebook page about if you want to advertise your property here. I saw that go up only last week. So we really, I know we will discuss it at a later date in more detail, but we really need to get some kind of control in place urgently. I mean, people are free to do what they want, but we as an authority have a responsibility to make that reasonable. There have to be some Airbnbs, of course, you know, no one would deny that, but we don't want a proliferation of them, as Councillor Simmons said, sort of dragging the heart and soul out of the community. People have to live there, so it's really important that we get that addressed as soon as possible. Councillor Edmonds' point was a good one as well about the drainage and the water. There are all kinds of water issues around Wixhams and Stewart there, with water pressures not being great, floodplains often that get built on, despite the ward members' protestations to certain planning departments that this is a floodplain, stuff gets built on. And I think we really need to, it's a really good point that is made about water and drainage over there, and it really needs to be given due consideration. Other than that, just to thank Patrick and John for the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Any further comments on Patrick's report? Would you be happy to take a question?
Thank you. Have Universal, on the issue of water management, have Universal been invited to the water management partnership thing that the Mayor's been sort of running off to the side with? Have they been invited to that? Do they attend that? Can we get any sort of information about their impact on their deliberations? Because I think water security and water management is one of the core parts of that organisation, committee.
I'll take that one. Thank you, Councillor Simmons. I don't think they've formally been invited to that partnership meeting. We, as an officer team, in terms of the development and the planning department, have been in conversation with Universal around that issue. And there's no reason for them not to attend the partnership meeting. However, that partnership meeting is more than just Universal, in a sense. So, but it would be potentially a good vehicle, because all of the regulators and the partners, etc., are all around that table. So that's something we'll take away.
Any further comments? No? Let's move on to item number 7 then, this highly anticipated presentation, which we've covered most of anyway, but this highly anticipated presentation by John. Over to you.
highly anticipated, our favourite subject, governance and transparency in this chamber. Is that poetic? I don't know. Can't get enough of it, can we? And I think the Chair is absolutely right. We've probably covered a lot of this already. So really, it will be a quick overview around the governance arrangements that we've got in place. And it's, you know, a huge project, which you all understand and know already, with many moving parts. And so ourselves, along with the government and Universal as the key partner, have put together an appropriate governance framework so we understand everything that you've asked. We understand all of the implications that Patrick's been through, all relating to the SDO, and then how that integrates, which again was touched upon in terms of wider development, construction management plans for, you know, regular housing versus this, etc., etc. So this is what I'm going to really cover in terms of that overarching governance, decision-making transparency, and, you know, mindful of commercial confidentiality, because there will be some of that in here in this programme and project, and then how the governance between the council and His Majesty's government works in practice. This clicker's got a delay. Is that viewable? It's viewable up there. Viewable up there, probably. This is the government's arrangements more than anything else. And as you can see, I can't see it there, so I'll turn here. Their programme board is called Project Nectarine, and it's made up of all of the key government departments involved. That's almost that strategic level. You will see there's a delivery board underneath that, which then touches upon all of the issues that we've talked about already in terms of transport, infrastructure, roads, travel, the Wixoms especially. It's not for you, Councillor Coombs. That just happens to be there. And then the wider benefits, that what I've termed the ripple effect of, in colloquial sort of language, the ripple effect of all of those other things, again, that Patrick's touched upon in terms of the economy, the socio-economic task force, the transport opportunities around it, and then where that feeds, you know, where they feed into each other, and how that then again feeds out into wider government departments. Our own governance structure really aligns with that and mirrors that. So as you can see on the right-hand side there is the Bedford Borough governance structure, and we have a strategic level board, programme board, a delivery group, which I'm the chair of, which feeds into, we would hope now, going forward, as you can see, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee there. And then beneath that, we've got all of the issues that we talked about tonight in terms of those local opportunities, and some of the key things, again, that we've talked about, that regulation and technical group, for example, will look at construction, noise, impacts, those sorts of things. The Blue Light Partners, last week I was talking to the Assistant Chief Constable about that group in particular, and again, key to you know, the safe and sustainable development going forward. Links into emergency planning, again, which I think Councillor Coombs sort of touched upon in terms of, you know, one thing happens here, what happens here, and then we have multiple incidents, which, as you know, we all know, can happen at any time. Housing we've talked about a lot already. Again, a key work stream going forward. That community liaison piece is a big box for a reason, because it's probably one of the, you know, the biggest pieces of work that we've got for the council to deliver. And then how they tie into the DCMS policy themes, as it were, in the middle there, in terms of job skills, the creative industries, the economy, and then that sort of inward investment piece. And then on the right-hand side, as you can see, it's all of the government work streams and programmes, again, which cross-references with what we've talked about already in terms of that huge infrastructure piece, because this is massive, beast of a project. As Patrick says, sort of once in a lifetime generational project, which we want to get right as a key partner as the council, and we want to work collectively and correctly with national government. There's some of the departments and some of the agencies that are already involved in this, and as we evolve and move forward, there'll be more and more added to this slide, no doubt. But again, we've touched upon Bedford. It's really, this slide probably captures it really. It's really at the heart of what is happening in Bedford Borough for both Bedford, Kempston and the surrounding villages. Think of the infrastructure. This is a huge infrastructure project in itself, and then we've got East-West Rail, and then we've got the upgrades to the A421, etc., etc. It's that huge ripple effect that we are part of leading on your behalf and you on behalf of residents and our communities, and we want to ensure that we build it right and get it right. So as we do go forward, we're delivering for our residents more than anything else. That's probably the end. In terms of governance and transparency, that's the structure. We can go back to a slide if that would help. Just let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any questions for John following his presentation? Councillor Edmonds.
Sorry, it's just a minor one. Is it possible to circulate these? Because I think I've twisted my neck now. I'm trying to look at it on screen.
Yeah, ditto. Any other questions for John? Sounds like you've got off lightly, John. Any comments? Councillor Coombs.
Just one, Chair. I hadn't realised until I saw the slides that Project Nectarine was an official name for this. I have a WhatsApp group that the Chief Exec created when she wanted to get messages out to group leaders before everything had been officially announced. And I thought she was just being overly dramatic by calling it Project Nectarine and making it sound top secret. I didn't realise it was a real thing, so thank you for confirming that.
Any other comments for John? No? Well, thank you, John. Most informative. So, moving on to item number 8. So that's to note the committee's terms of reference. You'll see the terms of reference included in the report pack today. Has anyone got any questions or any comments on the terms of reference? Or are we happy to note? Yep. Everyone happy to note those terms of reference? Lovely, thank you. Duly noted. So, item number 9 is to consider any call-ins. We haven't got anything in that section. Item number 10, record of decisions of the executive. The committee needs to note that no relevant decisions were made by the executive at its meeting held on the 3rd of June, which falls within the remit of this committee. Moving on to item number 11, which is the summary of relevant individual executive decisions. The committee needs to note that no individual executive decisions have been taken since the beginning of the new municipal year, which fall within the remit of this committee. Item number 12, notice of forthcoming decisions to be taken by the executive. To consider a summary of items included in the notice of forthcoming decisions for the 4-month period of July to October, which come within the purview of this committee. We have got a copy of that enclosed, and we have one item that is a notice of decision. We've queried this in the spoke, so I was just wondering, Councillor Simpkins, your question?
So I've got a question. It says here the decision date is due on June 2026. It's now the 29th of June. I don't recall seeing this decision come out yet. Is it going to come out today or tomorrow? If it isn't, why hasn't it? And when will it? Because on the Environment Committee, which I also sit on, I'm getting a bit fed up of asking about decisions that are being pushed back. So what's going on here if this hasn't come forward?
It's a complex piece of work, and it would just take a lot of... we had external legal representation acting for us with that piece of work, and it's just something as it's evolved has been a piece that it's needed to be extended. It won't be for the end of this month. It's likely to be early next month, but it does need to, for the project programme, need to be resolved very shortly.
I would just say, what it's about is facilitative work, in a sense, facilitative. It's unlocking, isn't it? Unlocking of a piece of land to allow, and to aid the development to go forward smoothly. Pat's absolutely right. As you would expect, legally, the council has to take all due diligence and all correct measures to make sure that we're doing things as we should do and in due process and good legal process, I would say, as well.
Councillor Simmons.
Sorry, I don't want to get bogged down in this because this is a very positive project and it's great this acquisition's going and everything, but it must have been known when the notice of forthcoming decision was put together that this would be an involved piece of work that would require exterior legal advice, and it was still put forward for this month. So why was it put forth this month if we either weren't confident or it slipped due to factors outside of our control? Why were those factors not anticipated, or why was it allowed to slip?
Just to add to John's point, that the council has taken a facilitator role within this, so we are just but one stakeholder on it, so it isn't all just sitting with us. We've been reliant on other parties and their specific legal interest with which to do that piece of work. So we as the council officers have moved it forward as quick as we can, but we also have to respond at what's happening with other parties as well. But we're in the final furlong with it now.
Any other comments on that particular item? No? Lovely, so we'll just move on to, bear 1 second, there we go, onto the work programme. So you'll see that we've got a draft work programme that's been attached to the report pack. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the work programme at all? Councillor Coombs?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you for including the items that I'd suggested at I couldn't attend the overview and scrutiny workshop, and I did send through a list of 5 items, and I'm pleased to see, particularly with the today's edition, with I'm never sure if it's section 4 or article 4, or is it article 4? Right, it's the same thing. And I see in the revised one, that's down for November. And I'm just thinking of the things that I put forward. Obviously, timing is everything. There needs to be choreographed. So one of them was Wixham Station. Obviously, that's with the government now to be built. Another one was integrating the new bus routes, which I think Councillor Masood mentioned as well earlier. That's something that needs to be worked in advance of the station opening, in advance of universal opening, because of the need to have it ready on day one. But the 2 items that are, I think, quite urgent is, one is the Article 4, because it's happening now. As I said, people are now buying the properties in anticipation, and people are suggesting that they advertise them. So I think that needs to be as soon as possible. I think we need a clear plan in place at the very next meeting. I don't think it can be any later than that. And likewise, the CPZ, which will partly be for the universal, but also for the station. The station itself will need a CPZ. I've said before, it's perfectly normal to think, why should I pay £8 to Bedford Council to park when I can park there on that road and not do it? I would do it, so why wouldn't anybody else do it? So we need to have these plans in place early. So of the things that I've suggested, I think residence parking and CPZ and the Article 4 are absolute priorities, and we should focus our efforts on those at the earliest available opportunity. Other than that, I'm very happy with everything that's in the work programme, Chair. Thank you.
I think we've got the CPZ coming up in the next meeting, which is the 5th of October, so that's already scheduled in for the next meeting anyway. We have, as part of that, when we had the scrutiny group meeting, we did discuss every single meeting having an update on housing, so hopefully we can start feeding that into there, but if we could start work on that. Councillor Caswell.
Thank you, Chair. I think the work programme is excellent, and I welcome the additions that Councillor Coombs has proposed. I'm reluctant to add to it, but I wonder if we could have some feedback from the Social and Economic Task Force at an appropriate time. And with your indulgence, Chair, can I just say, this committee was born after a lively debate, I think, to make sure the borough benefited, that residents were heard, local councillors, and that challenges were openly discussed. And can I just say, I think the quality of officer input into our committee already and the thoughtful contributions from all of my colleagues make me quite excited about the journey we're going on. The only thing I would say is it's going to be very challenging to get through that work programme, given the number of meetings that we have.
No, I quite agree. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Like Councillor Coombs, I welcome seeing a lot of the things that I put forward because I couldn't make it to the meeting. But I also want to concur on Article 4. I totally agree. I've been added to a group on Facebook which does basically give people the tools and all the sort of hints and tips and marketing know-how and stuff. So I think, you know, it is happening now, and it is going to start affecting our communities and where people live and how they can afford these homes as well.
No, I'd concur. I've seen the same thing in Wootton as well, with various Facebook groups that are popping up. I'd like to say also that when we went to the overview, the Scrutiny Group working party at the beginning of May, it was really good to see that pretty much everybody who submitted items for discussion and for inclusion in the work programme, we were all singing from the same hymn sheet, that there were overlap across, and with officers as well, and their suggested topics for our work programme. There was a great deal of overlap, which is really heartening to see, because that means that we've got best interest of residents and the borough at the heart of what we're doing here. Any other comments on the work programme? I would just like, it would be worthwhile, I think, coming back to something that Councillor Simmons mentioned about when we were talking about business rates and thinking about investment zone models. Also, and having a sort of a briefing as part of the work programme as far as that, so that we can insulate some of the, at least some of the benefits from the business, any business rate resets locally. I think that would be very useful, and obviously, you know, at the heart of all this is maximising opportunity for the entire borough, for businesses, people, rural and urban, which would be great. Anyone else got any comments on the work programme? We're happy to note that work programme and start leaving officers to providing the information for us. That's lovely. Can I thank you all for attending this evening for our inaugural meeting? Can I thank officers for their time and for their input this evening, and also before this meeting? It's been really helpful. But thank you all for attending, and I'll call the meeting to a close. Thank you.